people looking at you and like, wait a minute, you're a trainer, you're a fitness expert. How in the hell do you have diabetes? Aren't you supposed to be 400 pounds and sitting there, eating pizza and ice cream off of your belly while you're, watching Netflix and playing a video game all simultaneously?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a tough one for people, right? Because for people who have type 2 diabetes, also when you get diagnosed with it and you have the world in your mind anyway, at least looking at you the same way you just described.
Right.
And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't have type 2 diabetes because then everybody else is going to think all of those bad things about me. And you don't have discipline and you don't have control and you don't have this. And there's a lot of guilt, trust me, for somebody that was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. There's a lot of guilt with that. In 2015, I went to the doctor and the doctor was like, that's weird. And I was like, what's weird? And they're like, your A1Cs are just higher than what I would expect. And I was like, good, bad? They were like, it's not good or bad. It's just higher. I would just be aware of it. Okay. I went back the next year and the A1Cs were a full point higher. And they were like, ooh, that's pre-diabetes. And I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, you got to change your lifestyle. And I was like, what? And she was like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, you exercise regularly, you eat pretty well. And I was like, I eat better than most. Like, I'm not a saint with my food. And so I decided at that point, no more International Delight in my coffee. And in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that much sugar, but black coffee became a thing that I focused on. I went back a year later, another full point higher. And she was like, that's like, you're right there, like diabetic numbers. And I was like, no, I am not. I refuse you and your input. I don't even know if you're a real doctor. I was so mad. No. It's so.
Did you get your MD online?
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to out exercise and out diet this. Sure. So I went and I amped up my exercise routine more. And I started just like cutting out things like just that. I just won't eat. I just refuse food, and that must fix things. And then I got the flu in 2018 in February. And after the flu, my eyes got really blurry and I started drinking water. Joey, like water, which has always been kind of like, drink water because I'm supposed to, because I'm a grown up, like I'm an adult, so I'll drink it, but I'm not drinking water because I want it. I was drinking that like that was straight up fairy dust. I was like, give me water. I need the water. Give it to. I wake up 5 times a night to go pee. And then right before I go to bed, I chug more water, knowing that I'm gonna have to get up and go pee again. But I was so thirsty. And my eyesight's getting blurry. And then I start losing a lot of weight post this illness, right? And I'm thinking, oh, my eyesight's blurry because I'm sitting in a dark room looking at my phone all day because I'm sick and there's light glowing. That's got to be something that's not good for me. So my eyesight's probably blurry from doing that. But I lost about 30 pounds. And that's a lot of weight, especially because at the time, my walking around weight was always like 160 or 165. So I dropped down to 130 pounds. Jesus. Now, I'm not tall, but that was not a healthy weight. And I remember seeing a picture of me at like a big party that we had at Recover. And my shirt just kind of like draped over me. And I was like, that's weird. And so I looked it up. And I said, blurry eyesight, I'm peeing a lot, I'm incredibly thirsty, but I'm losing weight. That must be from the exercise. And then I looked it up and it said extreme weight gain or weight loss. And I was like, what? So I went back to the doctor. My fasting blood sugar was 350. And if anybody is familiar with blood sugar, that's really high. And usually fasting blood sugar for a non-diabetic, it should be below 100. And for a diabetic, it should be under 150. and it was at 350, and my A1Cs were at almost 13.
Wow.
And so that was a real moment. It was the Ides of March. I remember thinking it was March 15th, 2018, the Ides of March. Beware the Ides of March. And I call my wife, and my wife's getting the kids ready for school, and I'd gone in early, and I tell her about it. She was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I have the kids to do this, and I gotta, yeah, anyway, that stinks. We'll talk about it later." And I remember getting off the phone, and I was like, I am so hurt right now that she doesn't know how hurt I am.
Sure.
And that was a good like conversation moment for us and our relationship, where I didn't go into it. And I was like, I can't believe you treated me right. Like, I was like, I know you don't know how painful that was, that you weren't there in that conversation with me. But that was really painful because I needed somebody to feel bad for me. I don't know. I needed somebody to know how bad I felt. And yeah, the kids have to get to school, and I understood where she was coming from, but it didn't sink in until we had that talk, that she didn't understand where I was coming from. And anyway, it was strong. It was a strong relationship builder for us to have that kind of conversation. And so anyway, she told me at that point, she goes, "Well, if I know you and anything about you, you're going to take this and do something positive with it." And so that's what this course is, I think. I think this course that I'm working on is a part of that positive swing, where I had a conversation with the MedFit Network, the MedFit Classroom, MedFit Education, and Lisa Doherty that runs all of those things. We had a conversation, and she said, "Well, you put together a program, we'll launch it on our platform. It'll certainly be about a 10 or 15 hour course on the pathophysiology of diabetes, understanding diabetes, the difference between type 1 and type 2, which we'll get to, and exercise, behavior change, risk factors, contraindications, and nutrition." And all of those things add up. And, talking about the guilt from earlier, I mean, there was so much blame that I was putting on what's wrong with me? What could I have done better? What should I have done? Because I used to teach at workshops. When I would talk about type 2 diabetes, I would say, this should not exist in society.
Right.
Type 2 diabetes should not exist. It is a behavioral lifestyle issue. And don't get me wrong, for the most part, it is.
Sure.
Right? Like, there are behaviors that we do, and something clicks in our body that, there's a genetic code. There's this kind of epigenetic situation where it's like, you're fine until you hit this point. And once you hit this point, boom, then this kind of diabetes comes in. Same thing with heart disease. There are sometimes many people, you won't get it unless behaviors follow. And there are some people that are obese, that have really poor diets, and obesity is really strongly attached to diabetes. In fact, it's the number one risk factor for diabetes. But not everybody that's obese has diabetes. And I would be an example that also not everybody that gets type 2 diabetes is obese.